Frank, before the break, we were talking about the threat from China. It was an interesting room recently at this leadership conference. I was there, John Lanchowski was there, Roger Robinson was there, you were there. I mean, people that were intimately involved with beating the greatest threat to that point in history, the Soviet Union. And you were at Reykjavik. You know, I mentioned, I think Lanchowski was at Reykjavik. You said, well, I was. You were at Reykjavik. You saw that all happen. You watched Roger kind of being the maestro, organizing the orchestra of economic warfare that we did, and we won. I mean, we had strategic policy, we had nuclear policy, and all that was necessary to contain. We need an all-of-the-above solution for China. But at that meeting, you introduced me to a man who has an ETF solution, because all of America is like, well, you got to invest in China. All the advisors, we're trying to train them not to, but you got the futures in China. So how do we defund the Chinese war machine that we've been funding? Talk about that for a minute.
Well, let me just say at the outset, what you're doing to train investors or managers of investors not to put money in China is incalculably important. The National Security Investment Consultants Institute is, as far as I'm concerned, a key piece of what do we do about China. But so is the larger purpose that it serves, which is to actually reprise, albeit with a much more challenging existential threat to freedom than the one we defeated in the Cold War, namely the Chinese Communist Party. The effort that Roger, as you say, orchestrated and helped execute when President Reagan went after the hard currency cash flow of the evil empire. It's even more important, as you know better than anybody, Kevin, that we deprive the Chinese Communist Party of the investment funds that mostly unwitting retail American investors are making, because the Wall Street mavens who deploy their pension funds and their exchange-traded funds, mutual funds, what have you, continue to be committed to putting some of it, at least, in China.
Either from greed, naivete, or they've been co-opted.
Self-interest, indeed. And that's a piece of this story about what do we do about China that we come back to. But just on this one, Justin Bernier is the man who was with us,
right,
who was talking about a national security emerging market index exchange-traded fund that he has brought to NASDAQ and is actively offering American investors and others an option that if they feel, for whatever reason, institutional requirements or their aspirations for making some money, they're going to continue to invest in China. They get to screen out the bad actors that are unmistakably taking that money and using it to help our enemies build up their military machine, and by the way, also abuse the Chinese people. So that's a very promising development, coupled with what I think is, thanks again to Roger and Maria Bartiromo and others, a concerted effort to raise awareness that we cannot continue to underwrite our mortal enemy.
You know, you and I both have a mutual friend, Art Alley. He's a sponsor of this program through the Timothy Plan, and he's built an amazing investment firm on the idea that if you're a Christian, you don't want to be investing in people that destroy your values. And he's grown
literally
remarkably.
Or figuratively.
And here, the idea is if you want to invest globally, emerging markets in particular, you can't ignore China entirely, but you certainly don't want your money to be building weapons that are aimed at us.